You know that person who laughs at absolutely everything? The one who finds humor in situations that would send most people into a spiral? They've probably been through some stuff. I'm not talking about a bad haircut or a minor inconvenience. I'm talking about the kind of experiences that fundamentally rewire how you see the world. When you've survived your own storms, other people's rain showers just hit differently. Someone cuts them off in traffic, and instead of road rage, they're mentally 3 steps ahead, wondering if that driver is having a bad day or going through a divorce. What nobody tells you about people who've endured too much is that their brain literally operates on a different frequency. It isn't broken, it's trained. It has been trained by necessity to become a survival masterpiece that is still learning how to exist in a world where the immediate threat might no longer be real. These individuals develop what is essentially an immunity to life's chaos. Not an immunity to pain, but an immunity to being completely demolished by it. They've learned that survival isn't just a possibility, it's an inevitability. You'd think someone who's been through hell would be cynical, bitter, or closed off. While that can happen, often it's the complete opposite. They become the most aggressively empathetic people you ever meet. They can spot pain in others from a mile away because they've memorized that language fluently. They notice the slight shift in your tone or that forced smile you think you're hiding. They know how to read silence, not just the absence of words, but the texture of it, whether it's heavy, disappointed, or simply tired. Most people walk into a room and see furniture. They walk in and see the emotional temperature. This transformation is what psychologists call post-traumatic growth. Research suggests that a significant portion of people who face trauma don't just bounce back, they bounce forward. Their relationships deepen, their priorities crystallize, and their appreciation for ordinary moments becomes almost comically intense. They might tear up at a beautiful sunset and feel no embarrassment about it because they understand the value of a peaceful moment. However, there is a side to this that is rarely discussed, the hyper-vigilance. Their threat detection system never fully turns off. If you've ever been to a restaurant with someone who needs to sit facing the door or has 17 backup plans for a simple coffee date, that isn't paranoia. That is a nervous system that learned the hard way that safety is a luxury, not a guarantee. They often downplay their own experiences, claiming it wasn't that bad or that others have it worse. They've survived by telling themselves they're okay, so admitting struggle can feel like a failure. In relationships, these individuals are walking contradictions. They are incredibly loyal, but simultaneously incredibly distant. They'll show up for you at 3 a.m. without hesitation, but if you ask them to be vulnerable about their own needs, they suddenly become the busiest people in the world. Closeness has historically come with consequences for them. When early experiences teach you that connection is unpredictable, your nervous system doesn't relax when someone gets close. It braces for impact. They want connection desperately, but they're terrified of depending on anyone, because in their experience, dependence always comes with a price tag. They learn to need nobody, which looks like strength, but often feels like profound loneliness. Despite this, they become exceptionally good at adapting to change. A new job, moving cities, or an entire life falling apart on a Tuesday, they handle it with a unique kind of resilience. And then there's the humor. Their dark humor is next level. It isn't about being insensitive, it's about taking power away from the pain. When you can laugh at the absurdity of your own suffering, it loses some of its grip. Every joke is a tiny rebellion against the things that tried to break them. Interestingly, people who have gone through too much often have an intense relationship with control. They might micromanage the smallest details of their daily routine while remaining eerily zen about massive life uncertainties. This is because they've learned that the big stuff is usually beyond their control anyway, so they pour their energy into managing what they can. They might have an existential crisis about which coffee mug to use while remaining totally chill about career instability. The contradiction is the point. They are tough but tender, guarded but generous, hopeful but realistic. Beneath all this survival and growth lies a quiet grief.
It's not the grief of losing a person, but the grief of losing a version of themselves. They grieve for the person who trusted easily, who laughed without checking the room first, and who didn't need to rehearse conversations in their head. They miss the version of themselves that felt light, the self that didn't move through the world with a tightened chest. It's a strange feeling to be homesick for a version of yourself you barely remember, or a softness you didn't get to keep. This grief doesn't break them, it shapes them. It makes them quieter, more observant, and more intentional. It turns them into people who cherish peace because they know exactly what chaos costs. They value safe people because unsafe ones taught them the depth of the hurt. Strength for them isn't about never falling apart, it's about how many times they can reassemble themselves, even if the pieces don't fit the same way anymore. Their survival became insight, and their pain became compassion. Without even noticing, they became a lighthouse. Not because their life was gentle, but because they learned to navigate storms that would have shattered others. A lighthouse doesn't shine because it's perfect. It shines because it remembers the darkness and wants to guide others through it. So the next time you meet someone who seems a little too okay with chaos or a little too quick to laugh at their own misfortune, just know they've earned that wisdom. Every joke, every boundary, and every moment of unexpected depth was bought at a high price. They have gone through too much, and yet they are still here, still trying, and still finding reasons to hope. That is the true psychology of survival. It is poetry in motion.